Some decisions are major decisions, but there are also a lot of small decisions that we don't make. These decisions tax our minds, drain our energy, and create a lot of anxiety, nervousness, and mental torment because we don't take care of them. We decide not to decide, which in itself is a decision. Deciding to decide, to act, is a major challenge for all of us at different points and in different areas of our lives. There are experiences we go through that prevent us from working through the mental block of acting, of doing those things we know we ought to do. So what I want you to think about is this. What is it that you know you need to do? You want to do it, but for some reason or another, you've been holding back. For some reason, you just haven't been able to gather your nerves, push through the procrastination, stop putting it off, stop justifying or blaming. For some reason, you just haven't done it. You know you ought to do it. You really want to do it, but you don't know why you haven't done it. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Raise your hand, please. Okay. Then I've got company here this evening. I'm not talking to myself now. First of all, we know this is not easy, because in order to begin reinventing your life, you've got to make a conscious, deliberate, determined effort. You really have to put all of yourself into it. It's very challenging to act, to do those things. There are times when you're looking at it and you say, I know I need to do this, but I don't feel like it. I don't want to do it. I know I need to do it, yet leave me alone. No, I don't want to do it. So what do? What are those things that make us feel like that? I think among the things that prevent us from acting is the fear of failure. If you've already failed before, you don't want to fail again. The pain of that, the disappointment. The fear of loss is another thing, because many times when we do what we know we need to do, we feel like we might lose someone we love and care about. We don't want to hurt anybody. Many of us don't act because we want other people's approval. We want everybody to like us and accept us. And that's not possible. Many of us don't do what we want to do and don't act because of a lack of self-confidence. We don't believe enough in ourselves. I have a friend who's been working a job where she's miserable. She's talented. She wants to go somewhere she can do what she loves and make the kind of money she deserves. She's had some offers, but because of her fear and lack of self-confidence, she's afraid things might not work out. She won't take a chance on herself. So there she is, spending 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, miserable. She hates going to work. They're not paying her what she's worth, and she knows it. Yet, she still won't do what she knows she must do, and it's wearing her out. There are a lot of people whose jobs are making them sick because they won't act. Just look at absenteeism. Look at people who are depressed. You see them coming to work angry. How you doing? I don't know, just leave me alone. It's not even 9 a.m. yet. You're talking about good morning. There are days when you drive past your job and don't even want to stop because it's not in sync with who you are, but you haven't acted. I have another friend. This guy is brilliant. He's a business consultant. He's helped a lot of people start their businesses. People come to him because they know he's knowledgeable. But this guy won't start his own business. Now, he's very smart. He can do it. Everybody believes in him, except him. And he's so smart that he's talked himself out of it. Well, the numbers aren't right. So there are many reasons why we don't act. Another thing that affects us is not wanting to take personal responsibility. We want somebody else to do it. Many times we pick up our inability to act from people we love, people we admire. We identify with them and live in the context of their ideas, their opinions, their life patterns. We buy into it unconsciously. My mother is a pack rat. She keeps everything. She doesn't throw anything away. And I have unconsciously picked that up. Now, my mother never said, let me show you how to keep everything and just clutter things up. I unconsciously picked that up. Many times, unconsciously, we try to honor the people we love by being like them. By the same token, I realized something about myself when I had some major decisions to make. I found myself acting like my mother. See, my mother is the kind of person who, when she has a problem with one of the foster children she adopted, won't confront them. Instead, she calls me. Well, why don't you tell Linda to move? She's lazy, she won't go to work, she runs the streets all day, and then she comes home and sleeps. And I think she's doing drugs. I say, but Mama, why don't you tell Linda that? I bought the house for you. I told you when she wanted to come home, don't let a grown person come there and take advantage of you. But you let her. Well, after all, she's my child. Mama, then you handle that. When I tell Linda to leave, she says, Mama said I can stay. Mama, can I stay? And Mama tells her yes. Then she calls me, she's still here. Why worry me with this? Mama hadn't developed the courage to act. Some people won't act until there's a crisis. When Linda started stealing from Mama and took her Social Security check to get drugs, Mama finally got the courage to say, get out of here. Don't ever come back. But she wouldn't do it until then. We don't have to wait for a crisis. I have a friend who has struggled with losing weight. We've both been dealing with that challenge for the past 40 years. He's always weighed over 235 pounds. Man, I just can't lose weight. I'm big boned. I say, but I've never seen a fat skeleton. No, you need to act on your health. You can change this. You don't have to go to your grave overweight. We're all digging early graves with our teeth. We don't have to do this. Now, Bud, my friend, became ill a few weeks ago. In the last few weeks, he's lost more weight than he ever lost, even when we were competing, betting a lot of money. But what happened? Bud became diabetic. He went into insulin shock. He didn't know he was diabetic. His blood sugar spiked, and the doctor said, you are diabetic. You're going to need insulin shots every day. You're going to have to change your diet. And let me tell you what's going to happen if you don't do what we tell you to do. Number one, there's a possibility that you can become an amputee. Number two, you can go blind. Number three, you can become impotent. But say, help me, like the guys with Paul when Paul broke out of jail. Say, tell me what I must do to be saved. Bud, to be saved? I said, Bud, you want one of my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? No, I said. Bud, I can't believe you're eating vegetables, man. You're exercising. He said, that's right. I'm jogging in place too. Now, he had the ability to do it before, but for some people, it takes that kind of crisis to bring them into reality in order for them to act in their own best interest. Some people have to hit rock bottom in order to rise. I don't know why. You want to begin to look out on your life and what you want for yourself. And I think that when we begin to focus on what it takes for us to act, we can see that events can inspire us to act like that particular event in his life. A friend of mine wanted to do something, but he just did not have the motivation, the drive, or the confidence within himself. But his circumstances changed overnight. Through the acquisition of the company he worked for, he lost his job. Through the inspiration of desperation, he had to act. See, life also presents things that can inspire us to act. If we don't have the courage, and that's what it takes, courage, guts to do what we know we need to do, then life will move on us and make us act. Life will whoop your butt so bad you will be so miserable, you will catch so much hell that you'll say, yes, I'll do it. What do you want me to do? Take me. A friend of mine said, I can't stop smoking. I can't stop smoking. The doctor said, Sam, you have emphysema. Sam never picked up another cigarette. Then he said, look at those stupid people smoking. Sam, you did it for 35 years. How can you talk about people? Well, I was different. I'm trying to help them. They don't have to do the same thing I did, but be compassionate. Isn't it interesting how quickly we forget? So I'm saying, look at something in your life. It might be just writing a letter to somebody to say thank you. It might be just apologizing to someone. I had a confrontation in the Penobscot building with a security guard. He responded to me in what I perceived as a negative way, and he and I engaged in an argument. I did not like the way I handled that. I avoided going through the front door for a long time because I didn't want to face him. Finally, I decided to act. I went up to him and said, I want to apologize to you for the way in which I handled our argument the other day. I was wrong. I hope you accept my apology. He said, I do. And I said, thank you very much. I felt relieved. Now, when you decide to act, it's not always going to be like that. A friend of mine did some work for me. It was below par, to say the least. I knew this guy was capable of doing better work. I also knew he had a fragile ego. So I was trying to think of the most sensitive way to share this with him because I wanted him to redo the work. I was going to pay him for what he did, but I needed it done right. However, I was afraid I would hurt his feelings. I was very meticulous in how I approached him. I said, let me share this with you. You know I care about you, and you are a very talented and gifted person. You and I both know that what you've given me is not a true reflection of your talents and abilities. Let's go back in the studio and do this again. And he said to me, I'm going to forget you ever said that. I was wiped out. He never spoke to me again. Now, when you decide to act, you're going to have some people like that. We're no longer friends. I lost sleep over that, ladies and gentlemen. I said, I can't believe this. I remember sitting up one night, looking at the phone. I said, I got to call him. Then I said, no, forget that. Then I said, no, I got to call him. I picked up the phone. Man, look, we've been knowing each other too long to allow this to come between us. He said, don't call me anymore, and hung up. Then I started thinking, what can I do to make it up to him? And something came to me. What do you have to prove? See, many things we don't do is because we want people to like us. But there are some necessary losses in life. When you decide to act in your best interest, you're going to lose some friends. Everybody's not going to approve of you. Some people won't like you. Who do you think you are? You are arrogant. You think you can get away with that? You're selfish. Thanks, I got that. It's my life. So what I'm saying to you is, as you begin to look out on your life, this is challenging. This is not easy. Acting is not easy. So what are the things we can do to harness our will? Number one, you've got to bring it out and look at it. You've got to take the power out of it. You've got to expose it to the truth. And the truth is that it has no power over you. So write down something you want to act on, but for some reason have been holding back. Look at it. The next thing is ask yourself the question, is it helping me to continue to put it off? If it's an asset for you to continue procrastinating, then keep doing it. But if it's a liability, if it's causing you mental or emotional challenges, or perhaps even financial problems, look at it, examine it for what it is. Next step, ask yourself, what's blocking me? What's preventing me from acting? Why don't I have the courage to handle this? What am I running away from? What kind of avoidance behavior am I engaged in? Next, what is the worst thing that can happen when you take action? I looked at that and said, what's the worst thing that can happen when I tell him this? He could say, I don't like you. And he did. Now, what happened? I experienced that. I looked at it. I saw it. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I didn't die. My feelings were hurt a little. I lost some sleep over it. Sometimes I still think about it when I drive past his house. But I'm still here. It's uncomfortable, but it's okay. It doesn't bother me anymore. I've gotten used to it now. So, what's the worst that can happen? I want you to visualize it, experience it, feel the nervousness and the discomfort. And the more you run it in your mind, the less power it will have. Next is, how will you feel after taking this action? I felt a sense of personal achievement when I faced somebody who had been my mentor for years. For years, there was something I wanted to tell him, but I didn't have the courage. He was always the teacher. I was always the student. I looked up to him, admired him, and held him in high esteem. I was always grateful and thankful for the impact he had on my life. I loved him so much, yet I didn't have the courage to say to him, please stop drinking so much. You're an alcoholic. You need help. I didn't have the courage because I was afraid he might not like me. I was afraid he might be hurt and crushed, that we would no longer be friends. I didn't want to jeopardize what we had. I loved him a great deal, and I didn't know how this would affect our relationship. I didn't even want him to know that I knew he was an alcoholic. And so I was a coward. I was spineless in the name of love. I justified it to myself as a reason to avoid helping someone I loved, someone who was dying. I said, I love him so much, I just can't tell him this. I don't even know how he would handle knowing that I know he's an alcoholic. Finally, after years, I developed the courage to face my teacher, my mentor, the man who had molded me, who now looks at me and wants to do what I am doing, but did not. He came at a different time when the world wasn't ready for what he had to offer. Now he is living through me. And I had to face this man who has been like a father to me and say, I've got to tell you something. You've got a problem. I love you very much, Please stop drinking. You're killing yourself. It's not just social. You do it every day. You need help. And whatever I can do to support you in that, I will. Please stop. He looked at me, and I had no idea how he was going to handle it. At first, his expression seemed to say, "How dare you?" We just stood there, looking at each other. Then I reached out to embrace him. We had never embraced before. Macho men, we had never hugged. I hugged him, and he just stood there with his arms straight. He couldn't raise them to hug me back. He was in shock. After he got over the initial shock and could bring himself to speak, to maintain his composure because he could never afford to let his students see him vulnerable or admit that I was right, he simply said, "I'll be seeing you." I said, "Yes, sir. Tell your wife I'll be by the house to see you before I leave." When he walked away, at first I was very depressed. I questioned myself. Maybe it wasn't my place to do this. You know, when you take action, you're going to have second thoughts. But then I said, no. I did what I felt was right. I did it because I feel very strongly about this. Fortunately, a few weeks later, he called me back. He left a message with the answering service. "I just want to say thank you." And then he hung up. That was a good feeling. When we look at our lives, we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do? When you think about something you know you need to handle, what are you going to do? Write down 3 strong reasons why you know you must take action. Be explicit and descriptive because your reasons have power. Your reasons will drive you when you have doubts. When your faith becomes weak, your reasons will fortify you. When an inner voice whispers, "No, don't do that," your reasons will become your rod and your staff to comfort you through those challenging moments. So write down your reasons. And what you will find is that when you decide to act, when you decide to take life on, let me warn you, it can be painful. It will be uncomfortable. And that is where the growth is. Growth happens when you're uncomfortable, when you're stretching yourself, when you're taking life by the collar. You will get thrown to the ground again and again and again. But when you have determination and you know that what you're doing is right, it gives your life meaning, it gives you power. You will discover a power from on high. You will discover things about yourself that will electrify your personality. You will begin to uncover strengths you didn't even know you had. When you put yourself in challenging situations, repeat after me, please. I can go into action. I can go into action on anything in my life. Nothing is stopping me but me. Nothing is stopping me but me. No challenge in my life has any power over me. No challenge in my life has any power over me. Here's something that Howard Thurman wrote on the decision to act. It's a wondrous thing that a decision to act releases energy in the personality. For days on end, a person may drift along without much energy, having no particular sense of direction and no will to change. Then something happens to alter the pattern. It may be something very simple and inconsequential in itself, but it stabs awake. It alarms, it disturbs. In a flash, one gets a vivid picture of oneself, and then it passes. The result is decision, sharp, definitive decision. And in the wake of that decision, yes, even as part of the decision itself, energy is released. The act of decision sweeps all before it, and the life of the individual may be changed forever. When you decide to take action, you begin to access power within you. This power increases your self-esteem. It enhances your personal strength. It puts you in charge of your life, and life takes on a whole new meaning. There's a sense of personal freedom. That doesn't mean you won't have struggles. It doesn't mean you won't have challenges. It doesn't mean you won't suffer defeats. No. But what it does mean is that you are putting yourself in a position to grow. You are aligning yourself with your higher calling and your higher self. And that is what life is about.